In this video, I'm going to be comparing the DJI Mini 3 Pro and the Autel Evo Nano Plus. Welcome to the channel, everyone. I'm super pumped that you're here. So I've been flying and testing these two drones out for the past couple weeks. Definitely one more than the other. But I'll get into that in a second. So first off, why are these companies releasing sub 250 gram drones? And the basic answer is that regulators have decided that any drone that's less than 250 grams just won't cause too much damage if it crashes. So therefore, they're subject to less regulations and requirements. It really varies depending on exactly where you are, but in a lot of places you don't need to register it for one, and then also you can just fly over things that you legally can't fly over with bigger drones. So things like crowds of people, roads, stuff like that. With bigger drones, you can't legally fly over those. Legally.
You know what I'm saying?
That being said, two of the biggest ones out there right now are the Autel Evo Nano Plus and the DJI Mini 3. So I thought it would be cool to do a direct comparison and just compare a bunch of the different features on both. So hopefully after this video, you're gonna have a much better idea of which one that you wanna buy. To kick off this video, I have to talk about the nightmare situation I went through just getting an Evo Nano that worked. It was genuinely one of the most frustrating things I've had to deal with the past few years. But the basic summary is this. So I ordered my Autel off of Amazon, it showed up, the drone flew and everything, but it just wouldn't record videos. Essentially, I just kept getting the message that I didn't have an SD card inserted, even though I did, and I tried like 15 different cards. I formatted them in different ways, and even tried switching to the flash storage internally on the drone, and none of that worked. The flash storage was corrupted, and it just kept telling me I didn't have an SD card, so I couldn't record any videos. So I tried contacting support, and they just didn't answer.
We will get back to you shortly.
They're asking me to leave a message.
Are you serious? That's my message.
Alright. Your drones are not working for me. I would like some assistance. Thank you. So I looked online, and apparently this is a pretty common issue for these drones. Don't know why. It's a common issue. I think part of the problem is they're actually releasing two drones at the same time, so maybe they sort of rushed the development a little bit. But anyways, most people online just said that you need to just return it and exchange it for a new drone, and that seemed to work. So I did that. And the second one was also broken, and it had the same issue. This is me trying to hit the record button. Maybe it's time for Autel Nano 3.
This is seriously really frustrating.
It was so frustrating. I even had a couple trips lined up where I was planning on testing the two drones, but the Autel just didn't work, so I couldn't do that. Like just last weekend, I hosted a photography and videography workshop, and we went to all these really dope places in Colorado, and I just didn't have the drone to test it out. So I was able to get shots with the Mini, but not with the Autel. But eventually, I finally got one that worked after 4 of them. Four drones. So what my issue ended up being was an incompatibility with an older app that I was using. I've flown Autels before, so I already had the app downloaded, and when I plugged it up to the Nano, it like totally worked, which is what faked me out. Like the whole drone flew, it took off, everything, it just didn't record, so I figured it was some issue with the drone. And then when I went online and looked it up, everyone else was saying kind of the same thing. So I thought the only thing that you could do is just return it. So eventually, obviously, after a bunch of different drones, I was able to figure it out. But if you do have this same issue happen to you, just use a different version of the app. Just use the Autel Sky app and you should be fine. But regardless, it was just like such a nightmare situation because it could have been something that was easily corrected with support. But I called them and they just didn't answer. I emailed them multiple times and they just didn't answer. So it was a simple problem, but it turned into this whole big thing. Once I had 2 working drones, I could finally get started on the review. It was really hard for me not to hold a grudge, but I didn't. So with that said, let's get into the review. So first off, I want to talk about the products themselves. Price-wise, the DJI Mini 3 Pro comes in at $759 for the standard controller without the screen and $909 if you get the controller with the built-in screen. And if you want the Fly More kit with 2 extra batteries and this snazzy carrying case, it's going to cost an extra $189. Then the Evo Nano Plus comes in at $949 for the standard bundle, but they have a sale going on right now for $879. And if you want the premium bundle with this carrying case similar to the DJI case, it's gonna cost $999. And this also comes with 2 extra batteries. Both drones are similar in size, although the Mini does look a little bit bigger just because of the shape and the sensors up front. And I actually like how the Autel folds out more just because all the legs go out sideways, whereas the Mini has these 2 legs that go downwards. And it just seems just a little bit less intuitive to me. As far as the controllers go, here is the Mini and here is the Nano. This is kind of more like an Xboxy style controller, whereas the DJI one is a little bit more boxy. And if you do get the one without the screen, it's pretty much the same size as this. So here's a little side by side. And I've actually never had one of these DJI controllers with the built-in screen just because I kind of never thought it was necessary, but after using this for a while, it's actually really, really nice. It's just kind of one less thing to worry about when you're flying. Like if your phone is dead or something like that, you can just pack up controller, drone, and that's all you need. You don't need a phone or a cord or anything like that. And then as far as the Autel controller, like I said, it's a little bit more Xboxy video gamey, which I actually like. Also, side note to my mom in middle school when she gave me shit for playing video games, it worked out okay. I honestly think that's why I'm pretty decent at flying drones now.
Could you not yell at me right now?
But I will say it is a little bit weird when you get the phone in there. It's kind of like balanced a bit weird, but it does feel nice in your hands. Charging wise, the DJI charger is really solid. It's super compact and easy to carry around, and you can even use it as a battery bank if you need to charge something else on the go. The Autel charger can also charge 3 batteries, but it's the traditional little bank thing, and it's just not as nice and compact as the DJI. Next, I want to get into the handling and the actual drone performance. But before I do that, if you guys have 0.2 seconds to hit the like button, it would seriously mean the world to me. And as a reward for hitting the like button, I'll leave a picture of a really cute penguin at the end. So, it's right there. As far as flight time, the Mini has a slight advantage at 34 minutes of flight time compared to the Nano's 28. Keep in mind these battery times that they put online are rarely actually what you end up getting because, you know, you're flying, you're stopping, you're starting, you're going up, you're going down. And honestly, the best formula that I've found is divide it by 2 and add 6. It's usually right on par with where it is. When I timed similar flights, I got about 23 minutes for the Mini and about 19 minutes for the Nano. Another thing that's really awesome about the Mini is that they actually offer an extended battery that you can add, and it actually makes the drone go above 250 grams, but the battery time on that is like 47 minutes, which is insane. So again, divide by 2, add 6, and that's about what you would actually get. Next, let's get into range. Another thing that rarely lives up to what it says on paper, but this is what I got from my tests. So the furthest range that I got on the Mini was 4,691 meters. And then on the Evo Nano, I got 3,528. So the Mini did perform a little bit better, but honestly, it is mind-blowing that these drones can go this far. It's literally something that you can put in your pocket and it flies miles and miles away from yourself. And on both flights, the reason I had to come back was actually battery, not due to any like issues in the footage. So if I was just doing a one-way drone flight, I could definitely get further. We hate one-way drone flights. Both were pretty solid in high winds, and here's a quick video of just the drones facing each other in the exact same windy conditions. The Mini does seem to perform a little bit better and just has less of those like little micro vibrations. Next, I want to talk about tracking and obstacle avoidance. And the basic comparison is the fact that the Autel just doesn't really have it and the Mini does. It's supposed to be coming out soon, and I've seen some people able to get the tracking working with their Nano, but for me, it just didn't even show up. They do have a spotlight mode where you can kind of get the drone to track you, but it doesn't actually follow you. It just kind of like looks around wherever you're going. The Mini, however, does have full active track. And while I've definitely flown drones that have a lot better tracking, like Skydio, for example, the active track is really solid. Here's a few shots I got the other day chasing my car. All right, so now we're gonna hop into the footage itself. And the best thing that I can do here is just kind of tell you what I'm showing you and put the footage up side by side. The Mini 3 shoots 4K 30 as well as 4K 60, which is super, super helpful. If you want to slow your shots down at all, slow your shots down at all. But yeah, honestly, 4K 60 is definitely the most common shooting mode that I use. The Autel shoots at 4K 30, so here's a quick side-by-side of the Mini versus the Nano, both at 4K 30. As far as slow motion, the Mini 3 shoots at 1080 120 to give you that super sexy slow motion look. The Autel, on the other hand, only shoots at 1080 60, which, like I said, it still is slow, but it's not quite as slow. So as far as the image goes, the quality on both is honestly great. On the slow-mo footage, it's a little bit grainy for sure, but when you're shooting 4K, both drones look amazing. The Autel footage definitely has a little bit more clarity than the Mini footage that kind of has more of that softer, natural look. And personally, I prefer that softer look, but some people do prefer that sharper image and then just correct it or make it whatever they want in post. When you scale up to 400%, you can see that the Nano actually does have some more details in the trees. And when it comes to color, both have standard profiles as well as flat. On the standard color profile, I prefer the look of the Mini because I just think it has a little bit more like I said, like softer, natural look. But again, that's kind of just a personal preference thing. So both drones shoot log on paper. Here's a quick example of log color graded from the Mini. But as far as the Autel, I literally just couldn't figure out how to get it on. I tried a bunch of different times and there just wasn't any info online on how to do it. So theoretically you could shoot log, but I was not even able to get a sample. Next, I want to talk about shooting at night. Here is a quick little test that I did on both drones. Honestly, I have to hand the night shooting to the Nano, which is weird because the Mini aperture is at 1.7 and the Nano is at 2.8, but I kind of just like how the colors work on the Autel. Like the blacks are a little bit blacker, and it just gives like a little bit more of a clear look to it. Lastly, let's get into photos. The Mini has a 48 megapixel sensor and the Nano has a 50 megapixel sensor. So past that, there's just a couple more things I want to touch on. Number one being the vertical shooting mode on the Mini 3. This is something that the Mavic 1 actually had, where you could rotate the lens to shoot vertically, but for the past few drones, they've kind of moved away from that, but I'm super, super pumped to see it back on the Mini 3. Typically, when you shoot horizontally and you crop vertically, you lose basically 2/3 of your image. So having the ability to flip the camera and not lose any resolution is huge. And lastly, I want to talk about something that the Mini has that the Nano does not, that actually in a lot of situations is a good thing, and that's geofencing. There's certain places where DJI drones just literally will not allow you to take off at all. It's actually super annoying because sometimes you know you're flying in a legal area, or you're just flying, 10 feet up in your backyard or even through your house. But since you're in a geofenced area, it's not even gonna let you take off or do anything with your drone. And it's just really frustrating. This is not me telling you to buy an Autel and fly in a bunch of illegal places, but it is something that sort of limits you sometimes. So what are my final thoughts on these two drones? First off, I just wanna say, if you would have told me these specs on these three drones 3 years ago, there's no way I would have believed you. It's mind-blowing that we have these little palm-sized robots that fly miles away from us and can shoot things in 4K. Drone tech is progressing so quickly. So that being said, what are my final thoughts on the Autel? So honestly, the image is really solid, the range is really good, battery life is awesome, and it's a really solid drone. If you compared it to any drone a few years ago, it would have blown them out of the water. But the fact that the Mini 3 is also around and at a similar price range, for me, the Mini 3 is a much better pick. As far as usability, it just feels like a much more polished product. I really like how the image comes out. It has better range and battery life, shoots 4K 60, 1080, 120, and honestly just blows my mind every single time I fly it. I think Autel is off to a great start, but to be honest, I don't really think they're done with the drone. The tracking, for example, is still on the way, and there's other features that they haven't updated yet. And also there's like random prompts that are misspelled on their interface. So it just makes me think that they're just a little bit rushed getting it out. And another random thing about the Autel is there's this super annoying robot voice that tells you literally everything all the time when you're flying. So when you hit recording, it's like, start recording.
Start recording.
And then you hit stop.
Stop recording.
And it just kind of drives me insane sometimes. So I usually just turn my volume down completely. If they just had like a little beep, boop, that would have been way better. So I have hope for Autel, but for now, the Mini is a much better pick. Anyways, guys, I really hope that helps you make a decision when it comes to buying one of these two drones. If you found this video interesting, I think you'd really enjoy my FPV content. I'll link to one of my favorite videos up here. Feel free to check that out and just make sure you subscribe if you don't want to miss another video. Can't thank you guys enough for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. I did not forget about the penguin.
Stop recording.